Hi, my name's Dee and welcome to Sunchild Tarot, and I have with me, of course, astrologer David Fischer. We're going to look at the upcoming supermoon, blood moon, flower moon, total lunar eclipse. How are you doing, David?
I'm fine. Thank you for having me, Darren, as always.
You're always welcome. Now, eclipses in history are always, oh my God, the world's ending. Something's eating the moon. Run for your lives. We've got to run away. There's going to be death, doom, and disaster. And on that cheerful note, I am actually feeling really, really positive about this lunar eclipse. We can discuss some of the reasons why, and you can tell me whether I'm right or whether I'm wrong. But I think that this is an exciting thing. I think this is a good thing that we're going to have. I think it's a refreshing breath of fresh air. So, David, am I wrong?
I mean, it can be whatever you want it to be, right? That's the beauty of the Jupiter signs. But to be honest, there are a few things to be said about it being a South Node lunar eclipse in the sign of a benefic. Yes, there are very good treats for this full moon eclipse, even though it's a kind of a malefic influence. But we do need to look out for that little demonic piece of it that we are going to get into. So could you bring the chat up?
I can indeed. First, just tell us about a South Node eclipse in general while I work out the screen.
Right. So just so you guys know, the South and the North Node, they are the points of intersection of from the Earth's perspective. When you look out to the sky, they are the intersection of the ideal orbit of the Sun and the Moon. So when the Sun and the Moon cross paths in those orbits, we see those nodes. And they're exactly opposite. You see the moon there with a little horseshoe, opposite to another horseshoe turned up. So those are the nodes. The moon with the South Node means you kind of being lost for a moment, because an eclipse, remember, is these demons or these demonic influences represented by the nodes kind of swallowing up the sun and the moon. You get better interpretations of this out of the Indian tradition, of the so-called Vedic tradition.
As in the form of Rahu and Ketu?
Rahu and Ketu, yeah. They're seen as a demon that swallows the sun and the moon as a vengeance, because the sun and the moon are responsible for their eternal longing for being reattached together, because it's a demon that's severed in half. So this is the lower half that we are talking about conjoining the moon in this eclipse. And that means that fears that we have around things, because the South Node represents fears, irrational fears, things that take over our senses and direct them, that they make us alert to danger. But it's the South Node, so it could be a trick kind of danger. It doesn't mean necessarily that we are in danger. We're just going to realize what our fears are, I suppose. And when I say I suppose, I'm interpreting that because it's in the Jupiter sign. Jupiter has to do with our opinions. Jupiter has to do with what we know by experience, what we've learned to expect from life, from circumstances, from other people. That validates our opinion in a way.
So why are you talking about Jupiter in relation to the South Node?
Because it's being ruled by Jupiter, this lunar eclipse being in Sagittarius, and they are square to each other in aspect right now. So you can see the moon there is Sagittarius, Jupiter there in Pisces. It's a good thing that Jupiter, for example, rules those signs, and it's in a good dignity being in Pisces. It's able to provide for this moon a lot of images, which means we are going to see a lot of good things, a lot of Jupiterian things popping around us and validating our ideas. But what that's going to bring up as well, the flow of circumstance is going to bring as well with these eclipses, is not only good things that are characterized by Jupiter and Jupiterian masses, but also within those good things, the concealed truth behind our actions. It's going to show us our true motivations by making it explicit to us Because now it's that be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. And in this case, I would tell people that I would say be careful what you wish for, because right now you might get it. And you said previous to recording, I think, not sure if you mentioned this already here, that anything that we tried on right now could be something that would last in a way. And we should be careful with the kind of energy that we put out right now. And that's true. We have to release fear in this particular eclipse, because it is going to pop up a lot of fears that we have around that South Node. It's a place where we conceal our deepest fears and wounds, and we reject things with the South Node. We see the things that we need to reject, so we will be able to feel lighter, so we don't have to have so much pressure in our lives anymore. That's at least a good manifestation of it. A bad manifestation would be us being more uptight and more fearful in the presence of a South Node transit, and holding on to our coping mechanisms that are more toxic to us and to other people around us. And that could be the more negative manifestation.
This makes so much sense what you're saying in comparison to, I mean, I've already done oracle card readings for the 12 signs for the lunar eclipse, and I've been working today and yesterday on my full moon gods at play readings, and these themes to different extents for different signs have been coming through the same way, like the letting go of fears, allowing something new. Don't take the, for some people, it's been don't take the tried, tested, true route that is put in front of you, because it's not tried, tested, or true. That's not easy to say. But yeah, what you were saying about the be careful what you think, that's all to do with Jupiter. It's at 1 degree 11 minutes. So I was like, oh, there's an angel number, repeated numbers. So I wouldn't normally do this in the astrology side, but I had a look at angel number 111 or 111, which is very much about bringing things into manifestation, allowing for prosperity, awareness, uniqueness, motivation, independence. But that one of the main messages is be careful about what you think. Monitor your thoughts, because under the influence of this number, what you think, as you said, be careful what you wish for, what you think can be brought into being. So this is not how it was written on the website. I was looking it up, but basically, for God's sake, think nice things.
Think nice thoughts. Do you remember that Peter Pan in the beginning of the Disney movie, when they are thinking in wonderful thoughts, and that those things will make them fly? Well, right now, and that's because they had to face the hard truth of growing up. That represents the losing of innocence that growing up brings. And Peter Pan was basically teaching those children that it's okay to grow up in a way. Of course, he didn't want to. But it's okay. The equilibrium in the story is it's okay to grow up as long as you keep your thoughts pure and your heart focused on higher thinking and things that will lift you up and things that will bring you out of shadow and stuff like that. The Harry Potter with the Dementors and the Patronus thing of pulling on your happiest memories so you can drive away the depression and stuff. Well, in this period of time, with Jupiter being in its own sign, it's not that all our wishes are being granted, but all our wishes are being granted. It's just like it's not necessarily going to be the best thing ever, but it's just the validation of opinion. It's going to show you what your opinions truly are, in other words. Right. So if you are someone who was wishing for buying a new home, having a new car, things that are of more superficial nature, or if you were wishing, I don't know, for a new way of making a living because you've been struggling financially, all these things, they are going to be offered to you, but they're not going to be necessarily as you expected at this time. And you are going to learn to really see your desires for what they are. And this is what this moment is asking of us. We are going to be faced with our fears, even because we are in Sagittarius, in a good terrain, in a benefic sign. We are going to see our fears reflected back at us through the things that we have desired, that we manifested around us, and the way we manifested. And you can either look at them and go, they're not good enough, and I can't do anything right, and everything that I do, you can either devalue your own opinion, which is only going to generate more insecurity, instability, and fear, and it's going to allow you at this moment in time, since a lot that you desire has been given to you, it's going to allow you to dive deeper into negating your own reality, escapism. So for people who have addiction problems, if you get into a spiral of depression right now, getting back into an addictive behavior can be very dangerous, because it will be very offered to you. These opportunities to go into the addictive behavior will also be very abundant, because it's going to be validating the opinions that you have. Do you see how Jupiter works, being in domicile?
Yeah, but there's also that point of what we were saying prior to the call about the angelic influence within an eclipse being removed, because I was saying the angel of the degree where the eclipse is, 5 degrees Sagittarius, is ruled by Omael, who is about building bridges, fertility, multiplicity. So again, there's that growth of what you invest into, but also Omael helps defeat frustration, despair, and depression. And then there's that very point of what you just said about with the eclipse, that influence is taken away, and there's that risk of frustration, despair, and depression.
Yeah, there's that risk, and you are going to face that risk very clearly. But here's the thing. We are learning to rename our desires, and we are learning to aim them at what's more precious to our hearts and to the things that we are aiming to do with our spirits. So the endeavors that you're throwing yourself in, whether because you have a vision of being rich in the future, or because you only have this vision of just wanting to own a nice home, be with people that you love, whatever it is you're aiming for right now, you're going to be faced with the fears of not getting it, and with the fear of having to trust a plan that hasn't yet come through, but you are working on it, you are progressing on it. And now you get to that point of, okay, I have manifested a few things, but it's not as I expected. Things don't seem to be moving exactly in the direction that I expected. And this is the first bump in the road. I keep telling my clients and people lately that this mutability that we are experiencing right now, with the planets Jupiter and Mercury being in domicile, is a very good opportunity for us to come clean with our philosophies and with our, why we are desiring the things we are desiring. And yeah, basically our opinions about ourselves in the larger work of things, and how that can play out for us, and why. But the South and the North Node and the eclipses, they give such instability that is already inherent to these mutable signs and quality, that they make any image that pops up right now that is validating and that is, it feels like something that we should hold on to, not very reliable. So we should use these experiences that we are having that are good for us as propellers, but they are not the goal. They're not the end goal, because they're not going to sustain for long, because the current scenario is not sustainable. It's not going to remain like this forever. Everything that's going on right now is still very dependent on everything that was going on last year, and that hasn't stopped. But that will change. And so at this moment in time, we are kind of establishing a way to cope with the current reality that is very functional. But if you get attached to, I need to achieve this exactly like that, then you're going to crumble. Because right now your fears are going to be tested about your plans not going the way you've initially sketched them.
That, I mean, from what you were saying earlier, there's a bit of what Jupiter is revealing is more of a 9 of cups than a 10 of cups, with the
like
here's
that,
your wish fulfillment. Is that what you wanted?
I like that. Yeah, I love that. Yeah.
There's and I've suddenly, my brain's gone blank for what it was that you just said, because there was something else that I was inspired by that. No, I've lost it. You'll have to carry on. One thing I did want to ask you about.
Right.
So the eclipse is square to its own ruler. That looks like an issue.
Well, it would be more of an issue if they didn't have the same agenda, because Jupiter is in Pisces, where Jupiter square it from another sign, it could be a little more problematic. But in this case, it will allow things to be seen more consciously. Jupiter is a diurnal planet. Sagittarius is a diurnal sign. So it will really allow us to objectively name our demons in a way. The sun is in Pisces, the sun is in Gemini, remember. The North Node is in Gemini, and Mercury is also there. So we are coming clear to what that eclipse is going to make us come clear into what our demons are. And Jupiter in Pisces is going to allow us to refresh this perspective in a very dynamic way, so we don't get stuck. And I was just pointing out the fears of people being tested here, because it's a very real thing with the South Node. But there is much more like it's much more likely that you will go to towards the fixing things kind of side, or I want to resolve this, I want to have a new opinion about this, I want to get past these old opinions that I had about these things, and I want to have a clean new perspective, so I don't behave like that anymore, so I don't behave as I behaved when I was stuck in the previous set, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a lot in the degree symbols, which we can discuss later, or I'll do it on my Full Moon Gods at Play intro, but that backs up the idea of fixing things, like the degree head of the degree of Jupiter of 1 degree Pisces, as defined by Franz Baden, is an entity called Shad, who inspires technical inventions, inspires people to make creations that will make life better. But I want to challenge some, well, I mean, I'll fail, I know, but I want to challenge something what you were saying about the fears thing, because it's, yes, I can see how we will be confronted with that, and you seem beautifully confident that we can use that opportunity to overcome all of those fears. But I would say that it's a beautiful opportunity that we can overcome all of those fears. So exactly the same words, but Jupiter makes things better. It's co-present with Neptune. Neptune can be illusions, especially when it's in Pisces. Do you know what I mean? It's conjunct, as I said in my Oracle card once, it's conjunct. Oh, now that makes sense, because it's conjunct Pallas and it's conjunct Orpheus. Pallas indicates either wonderful psychic awareness, as like I said, Anastasia said, or a weaponization of images, metaphors, concepts. And with Orpheus being in that mix, there's the bravery of diving into the underworld, facing those fears, as you were saying, but Orpheus fell at the last hurdle. He turned round at the last instant to check that Eurydice was still there, and she got reclaimed back by the land of the dead. So is it that we can do this, or is it that we can do this, or we can end up doubling down on those old illusions?
Yeah, that's part of what I was saying as well, because it's that people that have addictive behavior, for example, they might have overcome one addiction and might just be getting on with another. at this point, you see, because this is an opportunity for us to start fresh with our view of the world and try to be more receptive. This is a feminine sign, or a receptive sign, a nocturnal sign of Jupiter. So it's what's being validated right now, and Jupiter is a benefic, so it's making that receptivity rewarding. It's making being receptive and being graceful to things and trying to understand things rather than just create separateness. That is validated here, but it's not going to be without fear, you know? And so a lot of people can indeed go into those addictive behaviors that are more of illusions to try and cope with, oh, I am afraid of this, and therefore all that I'm afraid of is going to happen again because it always happens to me. And if you get into that, you're probably going to manifest that again with you, because you're going to fall just in that coping mechanism cycle that people tend to get stuck on. So yeah, that Neptune there is worrisome. And there are other societal factors that make me worried about that too. That make me worry about that too.
So looking at the rest of the chart, I'm noticing that Uranus is, well, you would say that it's inconjunct or blind to the South Node, wouldn't you? You're not a big fan of quincunxes, but it's also, it's with it not understanding all this stuff. Does that mean that really in this chart we have a little break from Uranus's lightning power until everything kicks back in again? Because you could say it's almost sextile to the North Node.
Well, it is in contact with Saturn directly and very close. So, and Saturn is applying, they're mutually applying. So Uranus is running in the background of everything that's going on, because the broader the sphere of the planet, in this case, we're talking about Saturn, which is the limit of the visible planets, and Uranus comes after it. So they are social significators, they are structural significators, they are running in the background of everything that's happening within the personal sphere of the other planets within their circles. But so in that sense, Uranus is always going to be involved. But yes, this is more of an internal mind, how you are coping with reality right now and how you see your reality now that you had to go through everything that you went through with Jupiter in Aquarius and Capricorn. Because Jupiter being in Aquarius and Capricorn was one storyline, one long storyline that's still not over. We're just now with it dipping into Pisces for a couple of months until July. We are getting this taste of how it is to feel apart from the pressure of everything that's going on, because you had to move on with your life in a lot of ways, and now you're feeling all the difference, and that might feel unsettling and pop up all those fears again. But then Jupiter is going to go back into Aquarius, and we are going to be able to resolve everything that's been going on for the past 2 years in a much more head front way, you know.
Well, that's interesting because, I mean, you know, I was talking about this image earlier. Jupiter has just escaped from Saturn's house. It has just escaped from its father's house. And so it's in the second degree of Pisces, 1 degree Pisces. It's having a freedom to act. And of course, it's going to do that in a big style because that is Jupiter. In a few months, Saturn's going to go, come here, you, get in here. But at the moment, he's like a teenager just being able to leave home for the first time to have a few months for himself. Which also, to me, implies a certain degree of extravagance and instability.
Yeah, you can't live on wishful thinking, basically. But wishful thinking, as we are going to perceive with this transit of Jupiter in Pisces, is precisely what drives our will to live in a way. So that's the thing. We are going to just rediscover the essence of wishful thinking, which is feeding our spirit. really. We are going to discover the essence of our desires, and we're going to be able to look at them, because the situations that are going to occur around the eclipse are going to manifest our desires and our motivations in very clear ways.
Now, Mars. Mars is no doubt going to be a problem, because one, Mars is always a problem. Two, Mars isn't happy in Cancer, therefore it's a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But Mars is not really affecting
The eclipse?
The eclipse itself, is it?
Well, not really. You could consider the moon to be applying into a counter-intisha. Yeah, I think a counter-intisha to Mars here. But the south node is in that counter-intisha much more closely. And and Mars is already in the sign of the moon, so that's the connection. The connection is there by default. The moon is always going to be connected to Mars as long as it's receiving Mars. So the lunar significations that are going to pop up in this eclipse, they're going to make much clearer for us what we're lacking through these Martian manifestations that are bad, that are sour for us, that are not really pleasant. We are going to be seeing the way our frustration drives our impulses, and the way our frustrations have limited but also brought up a lot of our desires in the past. And now we have to let go of that frustration in a way, if we are to look to the future and move forward to things that are more desirable for us. We have to let go of the frustration of the things that we didn't accomplish since last year and since the other Jupiter transits through Capricorn and Aquarius. And we have to be able to dream again, dream anew, because things are completely different. And that Mars there is really in the way of that. It's showing us how we try to stop ourselves to move forward with our narrative, you know?
Now, I don't know whether you even have a position on this. Traditionally, the actual point of an eclipse is a bad time for performing any form of magical action.
Yeah.
However, the story of the full moon, which is like 4 minutes away from this eclipse, promises a rather good time for, I mean, what I've been saying on my videos is, if you want to do some hocus pocus, wait until the moment of the eclipse has passed. Wait until some light is returning to the disk of the moon before you do your hocus pocus, and then crack on, because it could be a doozy. But get past that eclipse point first. Do you have any opinion on that?
Well, my opinion is basic. I am not a very well-versed magician, but I do know a couple of things, and I think that eclipse magic is very unstable. And even though the moon might have light, which is certainly what you said is valid, like don't do any magic with a dark moon, with that kind of dark moon.
Yeah.
But I would also, to myself, not use the sign of the eclipse to do any kind of magic, even though it's Jupiter and Jupiter is receiving the moon. If it weren't an eclipse and the moon was already past the conjunction to the south node, then I would consider doing something then, because it would be less unstable. But in this case, it's better to avoid it.
Yes, I hadn't thought about the south node aspect of it, because they'll conjunct a few hours, 3 or 4 hours after, wouldn't they?
Yeah, let me just check when Venus is ingressing into Cancer, because I want to know. Okay, so Venus ingresses Cancer with the moon being in Pisces. I would say, if you guys want to do anything around then that would be good because the moon is with Jupiter being received. It's receiving Venus from her exaltation. So that's nice for some hocus pocus if you like.
The other thing I just want to pick up on, I mean, obviously I'll discuss this a bit on the Gods at Play videos, but some of the symbols for this eclipse, I mean, I love this. The inside degree or Chandra symbol for the eclipse is a pair of shoes with wings on them, basically Hermes sandals, especially since Mercury is present with it obviously being on the Sagittarius Gemini axis. And there's that image of gaining knowledge and communication, because I have been feeling about this eclipse that it's with that, as I said about Neptune conjunct Pallas conjunct Orpheus, is a chance to dive into your own personal underworld, but also get back out again. You go in there, you find out what you need to, and then you get the hell on out. You know, there's not
yeah, but that's what I'm talking about. The kinds of experiences that I was saying that we are going to have that are kind of unstable, and that people can, and not that people can't trust them, but they have to understand that the circumstances are going to change so much that their goals that appear to be very important right now are not going to appear so in a few months. And that's what I mean by that. But without what you just said of the ability to go into your own underworld and come back, this is what we are doing with these experiences that are not lasting. They are opportunities for us to get in touch with parts of ourselves and with our internal world in a way that is going to prepare us for whatever comes afterwards, which is the more fixed quality transits that we are going to get into.
And taking the influence of Shad with Jupiter into account, there's also inspirations for problem solving.
Inspirations from problem solving, yes. Basically, what I said before also with naming of demons, right, is like Mercury and Gemini, they have this characteristic of naming things. You give name to stuff so you can focus on them in the way that you want, so you can create your narrative that better serves your experience, right? And that act of naming things is much of what we are going to get, because remember I was saying that these problems and fears are going to pop up, and then we are going to be able to name them and creatively deal with these things that we now can see, and therefore we can understand and comprehend, and what we can comprehend we no longer fear. So
now, one thing we haven't covered, I've just realized, is how Virgo is going to save us all. This, with the square to the eclipse that Jupiter is taking, the third point of that, third, I can't even count, because yeah, a triangle, a square has 3 points. The fourth point of the square is, of course, Virgo, which is empty. Okay, it's got the ascendant in it in this chart, but that's because it's set to London. Adjust for your own time and place in the world. But there's that, you were saying how there is, when there is a T-square energy, that empty point of the cross is something that allows the solution. So you were saying about Virgo and listening, which echoes very much what I was saying about like your own personal dip into the underworld, have a listen, come back out again. Although it puts that Neptune in Pisces in an interesting light as well. So there's listening and discernment, one would hope. But yeah, tell us how Virgo is going to save us all.
With the Neptune in Pisces, which again is a very generational thing and pertains to more broad topics, we can expect that everything that happens in Virgo, the naming, the data collecting, the analytical mindset, all of these things, they're not going to be conclusive because Neptune doesn't allow it. You're not going to be able to see the full picture until Neptune is out of there. But what this does teach us is how to trust the information, but knowing that it can change at any moment. You don't use something as mutable as the information in Virgo, to build a house upon, for example. It would be like building a house on the sand of the beach. It would fall apart in no time. And in this case, Virgo is going to save us because we need to be more attentively listening to the new naming that we are giving to things, and we need to be putting it in order. We need to see what it means. We can't just name it and say, I am afraid of it, therefore I'm naming it like that, and I'm running away from it. Well, if running away is the best choice, then sure, you should do that. But you should use the Virgo listening. You should use the Virgo, maybe I can adapt to still get to where I want. Maybe I can adapt to still get to a desirable place. I just have to rearrange the order of things. It's not just identifying the problems and leaving things. It's identifying the problems and then problem solving, right? This is what Virgo does. Mercury might create problems in a way. It destabilizes things by naming them different, you know? It's like, oh, this is, when you look at a, let's say, give me an example, at a phone, you will look at a phone, you can look at a phone as a whole, or you can suddenly call it a button with a screen, a speaker, an internet navigator. You can call it by all these tiny things that it also does and that it also is. But if you call it a smartphone, you already know that it will do all those things, right? So what we have to change with Virgo is exactly the phone part, the smartphone part, how you call the whole set. Because now that you've given different names to the new part, to the different parts of the thing that you've looked into more attentively with all the eclipse energy, how are you going to call the set? How are you going to see the whole perspective so you can move forward with the plan, so you can be more clear about how to proceed with it? So this is the focus. Try not to be too scattered.
I'm going to add something onto that. I mean, hopefully you won't disagree with me. Virgo is the service to others sign as well, isn't it?
Yes.
Now, as we were discussing earlier, the Adriano Corelli symbol for 5 degrees Sagittarius, the symbol of the eclipse, is that of a many-horned ox. And what that is representing is a person who is industrious, but if they are working for themselves, they will reap no rewards, no benefits. Their workings will come to nothing. But if they are working in service to others, as an ox is wont to do, then they will actually get great rewards and great returns results for everybody concerned, including themselves. So we've got that Virgo is the solution to the T-square, but we've also got that message in the very degree of the lunar eclipse itself. So where you were saying about the problem solving, yes, problem naming, problem solving, but there's a double layer to that problem solving. There's the working out the solution and ensuring that it's done.
Yes, carrying out the process through.
Yes.
Yes, you have the benefics here in hard angles to this eclipse. You have Venus opposite to it, Jupiter square to it. These angles, they call for action, these hard aspects. They call for attitude that will balance them. Because sextiles and trines, they are things that are already balanced among themselves, just giving some result of the fertility that they have when combined. That comes naturally and easily as an expression. But this is trying to make things that don't mix come together. And the benefic, I like to think of the benefics as the secret thing that if we look with good eyes, if we look upon with good eyes, we will get the best out of. I'm not sure if it makes sense what I just said, but you have with Venus in Gemini and Jupiter in Pisces, which are more collective signs, collective oriented signs, what you said is very imperative. We have to be attentive to the needs of the collective. So we are also attentive to our own needs, because the collective and whatever is going on in the circumstances around us, if we are receptive to it and if we try to integrate to it, instead of just individuating desperately from it, as Mars and Fall would tell you to do out of fear, if we try to focus on the collectiveness, we can not focus so much on our own despair for not being able to bring the circumstances we would like to through, but it will also allow us to see how other people around us are needing our help. And by finding new motivation to help people, you also find new motivation to deal with your own problems that you also saw reflected in other people's lives. That's how you grow in community. You see yourself in other people and you make an effort to do so. It's a choice. It's a conscious choice of, I'm not going to focus on my problems. Let me call my friends. They probably need me more now. Unless, of course, you're dealing with something like starving, going hungry and stuff like that, then you have to deal with your own problems and probably call your friends for help. That's what these aspects are saying. You need to call your friends for help. And if your friends are not helping you, get better friends or social service if you can. Do whatever you can for yourself, but take action towards the good thing. That's what the hard aspects to the benefics say.
Now, I think that's a beautiful place to wrap up, because we have been talking for so long. But before we sign off, David, how can people contact you for an astrological reading?
As always, you can contact me on my Instagram account. That's David Fischer Astrology. And I have content in Portuguese, but I'm soon to release some content on YouTube that's going to be in English. So if you speak Portuguese and you'd like to check it out, all the captions are in English anyway. So,
well, yes, that was the next thing I was going to say. And you're starting your own YouTube channel now.
Yeah, I am.
Don't leave me, but you know,
definitely not. Yeah.
I will, as soon as I have the link for David's channel, I will be putting it in the description of pretty much all of my videos, because I just put the one description and then alter a little bit for each individual video. So David's contact details will be down there. There's, yeah, I really need to add your Instagram contact on there as well, don't I?
Yeah.
In the meantime, there is a link down below for the Facebook page for this channel. That's another way you can contact myself or David or Claire. We have to get you and Claire together at some point.
Right, I'd love to meet her, yeah.
And that's really it. So look at problem solving, service to others, which will be service to yourself. And another way I want to look at this is it's almost like, with that diving into the underworld and not getting trapped there and getting back out again, an initiation into a new level of you. And so best of luck, everybody, because oh my God, it's an eclipse. But this is also just laying the groundwork for the solar eclipse 2 weeks later, yeah? Yeah,
definitely. That's going to be a blast, yeah.
Right, so we will be doing a show about that closer to the day. So thank you very much for everybody. Like, share, subscribe, all that good YouTube stuff. And keep your eyes open in my videos for the link to David's channel, and like, share and subscribe him as well. All right, cheers, folks.